Hi, everybody. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, Texas on Thursday, October the 16th. And welcome to our commentary. Just a quick heads up. If you have not listened to our chat with Bill Katz, the editor of Urgent Agenda, do that. It's the video right before this one. Always recommend our chats with Bill. He's obviously someone with a lot of wisdom, and he lives in New York, so I thought you might be interested in hearing from someone. He doesn't actually live in New York City, but I mean in the surrounding areas. And I think that you might, it might be interesting for you to hear what somebody who lives there has to say about some of these controversial cases, like Letitia James, and of course the election in New York City, which is looking more and more like this gentleman Mandami is going to win. I mean, I guess they have a big debate coming up, and maybe Cuomo can turn it around. I don't know. They're like 8 to 10 points apart in most of the polls. That's a lot of numbers to make up. You know, it takes a pretty big debate to make that up. So, I think we might as well get ready for Mayor Mandani and everything that comes with that. But you'll hear a little bit from Bill of the perspective there, the perspective on the ground, which is always extremely good in these things. So check out the interview that we did with Bill. As I say, it's the video. It's more like an audio. With Bill, we don't do a video like typical video. We do more of an audio, more like a podcast. But it's the one before this one on the archives. Well, the huge story today is John Bolton was indicted. Not a shock, because there was some talk about that. And as you know, they raided his home, and I think most people were predicting that he would be indicted. It's going to happen in Maryland, in a federal court in Maryland, and we'll see where this thing goes. Obviously, the Democrats are talking vengeance. They're saying, oh, this is vengeance, Trump getting even. Well, I don't think that is, but I will tell you this. If these cases go to court and they don't find Bolton guilty, they don't find Letitia James guilty, or Cuomo guilty, then I think that argument makes more sense. But at the moment, we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what documents John Bolton had. We don't know what the situation with Letitia James is. I mean, I've heard all kinds of things, and one of the realities of life is that you got to be very careful about what you read about these cases, because a lot of people are just throwing a lot of information out at you, but they don't necessarily have the information, the correct information. So you got to be careful with what you're hearing. Okay, and don't let the partisans drive you one way or the other, which is unfortunately what could happen here. So just, I would say everybody needs to back down and just relax, and let's see what happens. Let's see when they actually have a trial and the information is presented. In the case of John Bolton, I think it has to do with documents, classified documents that he was not supposed to have. Where have we heard that one before? In the case of Letitia James, it's a question of mortgage fraud. That's a complicated topic. I don't know anything about it. But at the same time, you would think that mortgage fraud would be easy to prove or disprove by simply looking at the documents. I mean, there's going to be documents that will tell you what Letitia James was signing and what legal representation she was making. So let's see what happens. Let's see what happens when this goes to a real trial. The case of Comey, that's about perjury, and that is always, you don't know how that's going to work out, because you got to get in Comey's head, and that perjury is always a difficult one. But I think the other two, the documents with Bolton, and really documents as well with Letitia James, I mean, I think those are pretty black and white. I don't think there's going to be, honestly, a very long trial. There shouldn't be on those two cases, because either Letitia James committed fraud or represented some things incorrectly on the applications, or she didn't. And the same with John Bolton. Either he had the documents or he didn't. That's really as far as it goes with that one. So we'll see. We'll give this an opportunity to settle down, because right now you're hearing a lot of partisan stuff, and the Democrats are talking about vengeance, and I think they need to cool it. They need to cool it down a little bit, because I didn't remember anybody talking about vengeance when they were doing things to President Trump, and there was a lot of vengeance there. I mean, they were out to get Trump, and so I don't remember anybody coming on TV saying, "Hey, come on, let's cool it. Let's not go after the man or his family," as they tried to do in New York. So we'll sit back and wait and see how this goes. Wait and see how this goes. They will be found guilty or not found guilty, and then we'll take it from there. Well, you may have heard that there's an election in Virginia, and that election is getting really tight, really tight. Not only for Attorney General, but also for governor. That was supposed to be an easy victory for the Democrats, both of those. I mean, both of those offices in Virginia were supposed to be fairly easy. But it's all been complicated because the man who's running, the Democrat who's running for Attorney General, published some text, and where he was fantasizing about killing a Republican. That's a tough thing to overcome. I don't know how Democrats have not called on this man to resign. I mean, the idea that the man who could be the Attorney General of Virginia has made these statements publicly. I mean, come on, that's pretty serious. But so far they have not dropped him. But what's interesting, though, is that he is losing, at least according to the polls, he is losing to the incumbent Attorney General in Virginia. Remember, Virginia right now is a Republican, or at least the leadership in Republican governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general, right now is Republican. And the Democrats are trying to displace these Republicans. The problem in Virginia is that Governor Youngkin, who's extremely popular, cannot run for re-election. That's the big problem in Virginia. That's the reason why he's not, I think he would be easily re-elected if he was running for re-election. But the Democrat lady who's running for governor is really, she's very careful how she says things. She speaks a great deal, and remember these word salads that Kamala Harris used to speak in? That's how she speaks. And one of the controversial issues there is men playing in women's sports, or men, changing in women's bathrooms when they play sports. And that's a controversial issue, and that's hurting her. Now, at the moment, she is ahead. The Democrat is ahead in the governor's race. And as I say, the Republican is leading in the Attorney General race. That may be the way it comes down. I don't know. We'll see when people actually vote. But what's interesting now is the Democrats have sent in President Obama to Virginia. They want him to help the lady who's running for governor. I think her first name is Abigail. I don't remember her last name. And they want President Obama to help in this thing. The problem is that President Obama has never really been good at this. I don't take anything away from him. He did win, and he was reelected. So in that sense, he was pretty good, politically, that is. And he did maintain fairly decent approval rates throughout his presidency. In the second term, they were closer to 50%. In the first term, of course, they were higher because of all of the enthusiasm of the campaign. But, the guy did win twice, which is pretty remarkable. But he's never been able to translate that into getting votes for Democrats for whatever reason. He just doesn't seem to click with people when he goes out campaigning. We saw this in 2024 when he was campaigning in Philadelphia, campaigning in front of, I guess they sent them out to campaign for Kamala Harris among black men, and it didn't really work that well. It didn't really help Kamala Harris. So I don't know how much President Obama is really going to help the Democrats this time around. It's interesting. He's talking a lot about abortion rights and women's rights. I don't know why he's talking about that. because there are two women running for governor. I mean, the next governor of Virginia is going to be a woman. So what women's rights are we talking about? You know, what are we talking about? So I think he's just basically just reading. They've given him some talking points. My guess is that President Obama's objective in Virginia is to get the base out, to make sure they vote, make sure the base gets out and vote. That's what I assume he's there for. Whether he can do it or not do it, I honestly don't know. Let me tell you something, that really interesting article that I have over at the American Thinker today, and that is that there's a CEO of a major company in San Francisco who's actually calling on President Trump to send help into San Francisco. And I write about this in my post today. And, you know, this man goes through all the problems that San Francisco has, you know, drug addicts in the streets. Not downtown San Francisco is just not a nice place to visit or walk around. And that's the problem. And the local leadership apparently is not doing enough. I guess they don't have enough police officers. That's another problem. So I just do not understand why Democrats running these cities don't see the handwriting on the wall and say, hey, look, let's fix the problem. Let's fix the crime problem. And yes, let's work with Trump. But here's the reality of this. If you're a Democrat in one of these cities or one of these states, and you can fix the crime problem or at least make it better, you're going to get credit for it. You're going to get a lot of credit for it. And if you're a Democrat running for president in 2024, like Newsom in California or Pritzker in Illinois, and you can somehow get credit for fixing the crime problem in your state, you're going to get help. I mean, it's going to help you politically. So I don't understand really why the Democrats have taken this posture of just opposing anything that comes from Trump. They have to oppose, even if it hurts their own constituents, which I frankly do not understand one bit. I mean, why wouldn't you want to help your constituents by making your city safer? Why wouldn't you? Anyway, that's I think they call that Trump derangement syndrome. Anyway, thank you for listening. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye, everybody.